Having motivation can absolutely change your entire life. But having discipline actually makes your life better. I wanted to talk about this today because, especially today, my motivation has been extremely low. In the last couple days, it's been pretty low too. I'm not sure if it's burnout. I'm not sure if it's just the way of the world for me right now, or maybe it's the weather, or maybe it's just like the stress of doing this over and over for every day, trying to work on something and keep myself on task. But my motivation has been very low. However, I'm going to try my absolute best not to let that stop me, hopefully using my discipline to keep me on task. I wanted to talk about the difference of those things because I think it's super important for people to understand why they're doing something and what's going to get something done, and what it means to have motivation, what it means to have discipline, and how that affects your life. I think it's super important for people to understand that and know that about themselves. Because if you know what you do day to day and how you operate, you can identify the reasons behind that and you can work to change it if it's flawed, right? The more you know about yourself, the more you can change yourself, basically. The more you can work to become a better version of you, which is, I think, the goal for a lot of people is to become a better version of themselves. At least I would hope so. You shouldn't just stay where you're at and not think that you're flawed. You should always think, well, maybe there's a way to improve myself. Maybe there's a way I can fight to become a better version of myself, because of course that would make my life better in some way, right? To be better than who I was yesterday, right? So motivation is going to get a lot of stuff done in your life. You might wake up one day and be like, I really want to make like 10 videos right now, get them all out there so everyone can see them, and maybe I'll get some clicks, and maybe I'll get some attention, and maybe I'll start building something. If it's videos, great. If it's starting a business and selling clothes, whatever it is, it could be going to your job and doing the absolute almost amazing job you could at that job in hopes that you can build yourself to be more toward a promotion or something like that. It could be something as simple as just being motivated to work out that day. Motivation to work out and discipline to stay working out is probably the biggest topic to talk about, because so many people get motivated to work out and change their life for the better, to slim down, to be healthier. So many people have waves of motivation throughout their years. And you'll see people go to the gym at the beginning of the year. You'll hear a lot about that. Every New Year's, people make a resolution to become a better version of themselves physically. So they go to the gym and they start being really motivated to change their life. So they work out, and then you suddenly see them disappear in a few months. What happened to them? Well, their discipline did not kick in. Their motivation got them fueled in for a while, but the motivation did fade and something else took over. Their habits took over, their routine took over, and their motivation did not fuel them enough to get themselves back in the gym. Their discipline did not take the wheel. So I think just realizing what type of things motivation can get done and what type of things that discipline can get done is really important to me, and I think it should be to everyone. I feel like a good way to think about motivation is impulses. Impulses are something that you think for 1 second, then you act, right? An impulse is going to get you something done right away. Like you might be sitting on the couch doing nothing, and then you have an impulse like, I need to get this done. So you go do it, and then it's done. Awesome. An impulse just got something done. However, an impulse can kind of get the car started, but motivation and impulses is not going to keep that car going. You need fuel to stay in that tank. You need to keep that car moving, and discipline is what is actually going to keep that moving forever. Or actually, a better way to think about it is maybe the fuel tank of the car in this metaphor is entirely filled with motivation. And in order to keep that car moving, you got to keep stopping at that gas pump and filling that thing up with motivation. The more you decide to go to that gas pump and put motivation back in that fuel tank, the more you're actually going to keep moving and keep getting your goals done. And that is, I think, a good way to think about discipline, is deciding to actively go to that gas pump and pay that money and keep going, because it's a hard decision sometimes to pay that money because it's expensive. I don't know how expensive it is now for you, but for me, it's pretty expensive. For people I know are pretty expensive. Obviously, people in the Western states are even more expensive, but I don't have to talk about gas prices. Just the kind of idea behind it is that you really do have to push yourself to stay motivated. Otherwise, that is going to run dry and you're going to come to a halting stop, or you're going to burn out as well, which can also end up in the same place where you're halting to a stop. Motivation can fuel you in lots of ways. It can get yourself moving, it can get your heart pumping, get you really excited, but that will fade, and you have to understand it will fade. And you're gonna see your own examples of this in your own life. I don't have to convince you of it, really. As soon as you start doing anything in particular in life, after you've decided on some goals, you're gonna see that motivation will fade, and you're gonna have to keep yourself on task in a routine-based disciplinary way. Otherwise, motivation will not keep you going. You'll realize that, and I don't have to prove it to you, because I'm pretty sure it's the case for everyone when it comes to any particular thing. But I guess everyone's brain is different, and I can't say that in a definitive way. But yeah, what I said originally is that motivation can change your life, but discipline actually makes your life better. I wrote that down, and I made that sentence clear to me because I think that really speaks well to a life lesson. Motivation can actually change your life, because if you're in a routine and motivation kickstarts something new for you, it's going to cause you to actively decide to change something. It's going to spearhead you toward a different change in your life. But if you want that change to stick, if you want that change to actually affect you, you need to set disciplinary actions in place, probably while you're motivated would be the best place to do it, so that you can actually use that motivation to actually make your life better by using discipline as to make your life better. Because if you use your motivation to put in disciplinary measures, you can actually make your life better, but also make sure you know how to act without motivation. That's the only way discipline's actually going to work, because motivation can get you going, but discipline will keep you there, right? And a good way to describe it is if you want a short-term payoff, an impulse getting that done is very realistic, I think. Because if you want to get something done that is very quick, like say you want to sell a bunch of stuff in your house, like maybe you're cluttered, maybe you have a lot of stuff that you could just sell online. Motivation you can spend a couple days listing all of that stuff. The rest of the time it's going to be bought or it's going to be taken care of. It's all good to go. But if you don't market it, it might not sell that quickly, but you still got all that stuff done while you're motivated, and that short-term payoff, good to go, awesome. But say you wanted a long-term payoff, meaning like over the next few years, you're starting to build something that's very successful. You would want to set a long-term disciplinary act in motion for that long-term goal. And I think a long-term payoff on disciplinary action is actually realistic as well. And if you do it a different way, if you wanted a long-term goal with a short-term action, that's not going to work out. If you wanted a short-term action by using discipline, that might not have the right motivation. I mean, there's discipline to get stuff done, but that doesn't work toward like short-term goals. Discipline is routine-based. It's not something you can put in place in one instance and then be done with it. Discipline, and as it's defined, is doing something repeatedly and keeping yourself on track and using your own sense of principles to stay where you need to go, right? I don't know how to define discipline in the absolute best way. I do understand it in a certain way as like doing what you're not exactly comfortable with to make sure you're staying on the right path, right? As soon as motivation fades, you're no longer going to be comfortable pursuing whatever it is that got you there in the first place. You're not going to be comfortable getting that stuff done. You need discipline to stay comfortable, right? And discipline in practice is deciding over and over to make habits. They say a habit can be made or broken within 20 days because it's just a matter of teaching your brain to associate a routine into place so that it's something you're used to and that's not going to feel uncomfortable. Because uncomfortableness generally doesn't sit well with the human consciousness. Uncomfortableness is not good. It's fearful. It's worrisome. You can get over those things too, but generally getting outside of your comfort zone is difficult. People will try to convince you, and I try to convince you, that as soon as something feels uncomfortable, you're probably on the right track because it's something out of your comfort zone, and that's what's actually going to change your life. Because the stuff that you're comfortable with is the stuff that's actively a part of your life, right? You've already done it. You've already gotten used to it. It's part of your routine. It's part of who you are. So you're already good to go on it. But if something is uncomfortable, it's outside of that box, that could be something better. It's probably something better. And so thinking about these things in that way, I think, is really important. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. We can talk more about motivation and discipline and how those stuff works, but I think it's really, really important for people to understand that motivation and discipline are very, very different. And motivation to get something done is fantastic. Yeah, it's going to change a lot of things. Like I had a lot of motivation the last couple months to get started with, like, you know, a clothing brand, get started making these videos, and get started on all these things, and I can feel that motivation fading. I can actually feel it slipping away. I just want to distract myself. I want to play games. I want to, like, maybe I'll read a book, or maybe I'll play the Switch, or maybe I'll just work on something else entirely, or watch some shows. I really want to just do all that stuff, but I want to keep myself on track. My disciplinary routine these days has been to work on this type of stuff whenever I'm not at work, except for like Saturdays. That's kind of my plan. It has been a long haul so far, and motivation is fading. And if the motivation fades completely, it's going to be hard to stay on track. That's why I should talk about as well. Like, I'm here right now because of, I think, a sense of discipline, but also I did drink a Monster, and I feel like people sometimes supplement their motivation with certain things like coffee, caffeine, Monster energy drinks, and other types of things. Because if you don't exactly feel comfortable getting what you need to get done, you sometimes feel like you need something to aid you in the path, because discipline isn't aiding you in the path, and I need to change. I need to admit that to myself, and like, for Pete's sake, bro, I need to stop drinking Monster. It's probably not good for me at all. I hear a lot of bad things about it, but I mean, I'm okay so far. It's been like, I don't know, 15 years drinking Monster like every other day or something like that. Well, it's not 3 a day, but it's not like every single day. I should probably end up changing that, of course, and I should put a plan in place. Motivation has caused me to stop multiple times before, but discipline will stop me completely from doing stuff like that. And I like to be on a healthy pathway, and there are a lot of things I don't do that are unhealthy, so I feel pretty good about that, but I do have a sense of like guilt, I suppose, by not choosing to stay off of Monster and caffeine, but you know, that's a whole nother topic, I suppose, and that's something that I have to deal with and address. So that's just a kind of example, something human to talk about that really speaks to motivation versus discipline there. Like, having a supplement to keep you going is definitely not good. You don't want a crutch. You want to work on what discipline actually means to you and how to put that in place so that you can actually improve your life. So that about wraps it up, I think. I could talk about that a lot more probably and just kind of repeat the same things, honestly, but I don't want to go like overboard and talk for way too long. So I hope you guys are enjoying my thoughts and stuff like that. I tried to be helpful to you in some way. I just want to be open and talk about stuff I've learned, so I hope it helps you in some way. As I always say, I try to say this at the end of my videos, so to remind you, these are my opinions, and you should always research and try to form your own accurately informed opinion. Always be logical, always be real, always be aware and introspective, and enjoy the moment right now, because that's all life is. So, see ya.